everyone joining in. So good to see you here today. We are grateful that you have taken time out of your day to jump on this webinar with us and talk about ideas, ways that we can do major events this fall. I don't know how this happened. To me, it still feels like March, but here we are in September, the longest year ever, and it's time to plan for what's going to happen for the rest of 2020. And I think this pandemic's still going to be here. And so we want to know that you're here. Feel free to utilize the chat room, say hi, say hello, pop in. And then as you come up with questions throughout the webinar, just kind of type those questions in the chat room. How about if you have any ideas, make it just a major idea exchange. We would love to hear what you're thinking. You know, some of the things that have worked well for you. Our next Facebook Live webinar will be on September 17th at 1 p.m. Central Time, and it's best ideas for fall engagement. Now, you may be thinking, if we're talking about major events from now through the end of the year and it's fall, how is that seminar going to differ? Well, I think some of it will build on it, and we're also going to be talking more in terms of engaging the people around you, how to engage the community, how to keep developing that online congregation, how to mix the in-person congregation with your online congregation, etc., and all of that. So we'll kind of just keep fleshing those things out. We have something new we want to introduce to you today, and I think it's going to be awesome. We're calling it an event in a box. The event in a box. And so it's a 5-week major event co-laboratory. And so it's going to be led by our company's president, Mark DeVries. So that's enough right there just to sign up. And when he uses the word laboratory, he means laboratory. Just warning, if you've ever worked with Mark, it's so much fun. But when he says, hey, I got an idea, grab a pen and paper, because you're going to have to start jotting down notes. Pat knows, right? And so in this event in a box, it's 5 online sessions, 1 hour each, where Mark and one of our other consultants, Trey Wentz, are going to be working you through actually taking some fall special event ideas and putting them boots to the ground, black and white plan. You can you can do it like singular, like just yourself from your church, or you can grab a few people from your church. Ministry Architects is going to help you design and prepare to launch that major event this fall. We're kind of like, you know, we're going to be your youth, children's, family ministry director. The co-laboratory with Mark and Trey is open to the first 6 people who sign up. So you can just put your name in the chat box. The cost is $199, which is, when I saw this info today, I thought, because literally it's fresh, hot off the press, I thought for $199 per church, it's like getting your own youth director to direct that, or own children's director or program director to work out that plan for you. So anyway, first 6 people will sign up, get that laboratory with Mark. We can put other similar boxes, event in a box together. You're going to get a lot of ideas today that I think you will hear that you want maybe a little bit of help with. We'll work through that with you. So today, what we're talking about is, here we are in this pandemic. Why do major events matter now more than they ever would? Now, and especially if you think about it, September, October, November, December is full of major events normally, but nothing's normal right now. From today's webinar, if you would like to have a 30-minute free major event consultation, sign up at this address, web address that Sean is putting in the chat room. Right, Sean? Just nod your head. Yeah, Sean's my bud. And Sean, why don't you jump in and kind of introduce the format for today?
Yes, I would love to do that. Thanks for joining us. I'll be kind of behind the scenes if you need anything. And for the webinar, the chat feature on Zoom is really where you can drop comments, say hey, share ideas. And then you'll also notice at the bottom of your menu on the Zoom is a Q&A feature. And that's, if you have specific questions for Stephanie or our other panelists who you will meet, you can write questions there. And one of the cool features there is that if you see a question you like, you can upvote. So the most popular questions will scroll to the top of our radar and we will make sure we address those. So I think that's it. Steph, you're in good hands with Steph and our guests. And so I'm going to turn it back to her, but reach out to me if you need something. I'll be behind the scenes.
Thanks, Sean. Let me introduce our panelists for today. Pat Fletcher is in North Carolina, as well as Scott Elliott, who's also from North Carolina. Pat, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what your ministry connection is. And then Scott, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us your ministry connection. And then Sean's also going to be serving as one of the panelists. Sean, why don't you then share? But Pat, how about you go first?
Sure. I'm Pat Fletcher in Louisville, North Carolina. I have been doing children, youth, and family ministry forever. I think there were dinosaurs back when I started, and I'm going to be doing it till I die, probably. I love this ministry, and there's nothing that I'd rather be doing. This is my passion. I even have a star in the constellation Cassiopeia named Pat's Vision, which is all about my vision of youth and family and children ministry. So this is going to be fun. I can't wait to hear all the ideas and questions.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Scott, how about yourself?
Yes, my name is Scott Elliott. I am in Monroe, North Carolina, and I serve at Spirit of Joy Lutheran Church. I am their family and youth minister. And just like Pat, I have a love, a passion for our students, our children, and our families, how to train families to be the main faith formation leaders in their homes, to encourage that, to equip that, while at the same time loving on our kids and our youth when they can come through our doors or our parking lots, wherever they may be.
Great, thank you. Scott and Sean, how about you?
Well, yeah, in addition to being behind the scenes today, I've been with Ministry Architects as a consultant since 2014 and been doing children and youth ministry for about 20 years now. I currently am the children and youth minister at First Baptist Church in McMinnville, Oregon, about an hour outside of Portland. So excited to be here as part of the conversation today.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that. Well, here's how our flow is going to go. I'm going to take a little bit of time just to lead us through a short 20-25 minutes, which, well, now that I say short, that may not seem short to you, but a little bit of a teaching time, a little seminar, so to speak. And I'm going to share my PowerPoint in just a moment. And then we're going to take the last portion of our time together to open it up for questions and hear from our great panelists, what Pat would do, Scott would do, Sean would do, because they've got in the trenches experience as well. And so that's kind of how things would flow. Get comfortable. I'm going to share my screen here. And so let's get started. And it's so good to see all of you today, by the way. It's just good to have you here, good to have you check in, be a part of all of this. And so I just wish I could meet all of you myself, actually, because that's the best part, is hearing where everybody's from. I took a quick peek at the chat room. And so, okay, so here we are. It's 2020. It's September 3rd. I never thought we'd still be here. Back March 13th, I got sent home from a church I was consulting with in Atlanta. I flew in that morning to start an assessment, and then the executive pastor came in and said, we're shutting the plant down, the campus down, and it's the first time I've ever flown somewhere and flown home in the same day. Let me tell you, I'm not a fan of it. And that was the beginning of this pandemic for me, and I thought, hey, I'm sure we'll be done with this thing by, actually it was March 13th, and I remember as I was flying home thinking, I wonder if we'll be able to do in-person Easter. Maybe we better think of doing some virtual stuff. And then Easter came and went, and I thought, I bet we're over this by May. Churches will be able to open back up, everything will be fine, and we'll just flow into a great summer in VBS. Well, that didn't happen either. And never back 6 months ago when this started did I think we'd be in September, and considering the rest of the year actually may be virtual, definitely going to need to be safe practices, whether there's a portion of in-person and virtual. Here we are thinking about this even through Christmas. And I know the pandemic's not going to magically end by January 1st, but I don't know about you, but I think I'm just doing good. I'm going to be doing good to get through the next 4 months. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we know, here's what we probably know. These aren't necessarily absolutes. It's just stuff that I've picked up with working with churches, hundreds of churches around the country. The pandemic is still here, and families are overwhelmed getting their kids back to school. My husband and I have 7 kids, and a few of them have got kids in multiple age levels, and it's chaos. None of them are on the same schedule. They're overwhelmed. My kids are overwhelmed. I'm even in Chicago right now helping out one of my kids and their kids. They called in the big guns, like Grandma Caro is coming, y'all better watch out. So anyway, families are overwhelmed. I met with a children's team a few weeks ago, and one of the moms said, I really don't want to have to worry about the weekly, the stress is what she said, the stress of weekly, regular, in-person children's ministry at my church. It's going to be enough just getting my kids back to school and weekly, whatever form that took. And then another mom said, I agree, because school right now for this church is in Wisconsin. School right now for them is a little bit of the canary in the coal mine. They're waiting to see how it goes. Will they be able to meet in person, or will they have to shut back down again and go completely virtual? A lot of schools went back this week, whether virtual or hybrid or in person. A lot of schools are going back next week after Labor Day, and it's overwhelming. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about maybe giving some permission to sort of lighten up on the schedule. Maybe take, a few plates from spinning, kind of okay to backtrack a little bit in how much programming we offer. One thing that we've discovered that's trending is that churches that have gone back to in-person worship are discovering that families aren't necessarily ready to return yet. I've had a number of pastors kind of indicate their surprise. And one pastor said to me, I really thought it was going to be the families with kids that would be rushing back to me. They're less delicate, less compromised. But on Sunday mornings, we're at maybe 25% capacity, and it's all older, compromised people. So families aren't really rushing back yet. And as I said before, it's okay for us to dial back, I think, the amount of programming. Here's kind of what I mean by that. Scott, Scott and Pat, both of you, so is Sean, you're all 3 paid staff, is that right? Everybody's paid staff. And in my coaching with a number of on-staff children's and youth workers, one of the fears they have is if they don't plan the full out amount of regular programming, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, youth choir, all the things, I've had staff people say, I'm afraid I'll get fired. because they'll be wondering what I do. I feel stressed to produce, even when my families don't necessarily want that. Pastors out there, church leaders, I think for right now, it's okay to dial back the amount of programming we're giving, because it's not what your churches, your families want most anyway. Now, it may be different for some of you, but for many churches, I think that offering less meetings, less events in person or safe, COVID safe, maybe not worrying so much about weekly, but offering maybe once a month really good, really well done events might be the key to get us through the end of the year. Now, I'm not saying, because I think it'd be, I just met Pat and got to talk with her before we started. And I'll tell you what, she is so sweet and loves ministry. That doesn't mean she couldn't pop on weekly for bedtime Bible stories with Miss Pat. That would be a great weekly thing to produce. Scott could do, late night Bible study, 30-minute quickie kind of Bible lesson. Students are zoomed out, but you could do something weekly that's not quite so stressful. But it's okay, I think, to take the pressure off ourselves. Another thing we've learned, and this is especially true, it's an especially true lesson for those churches that before March didn't record, didn't live stream, didn't do virtual. Offering virtual ministry is here to stay. If you think that once the pandemic is over and everybody can come out of their homes and go back to church full capacity, and you're not going to need to offer virtual, you're going to miss a huge opportunity to share the gospel. Because even before the pandemic started, we knew that we needed to offer more virtual content. We needed to offer it for families who were busy on weekends doing soccer, lacrosse, baseball, crochet tournaments, whatever. And we needed to offer more virtual. The pandemic has forced us into learning that. It was a pretty fast, quick learning curve, wasn't it? While we're offering virtual content, another key thing, and I just had this conversation this morning with a coaching call I did with a young children's worker. We talked about how important it is to develop our online congregations, to develop our online children's ministry, our online youth group, because you've got kids and you've got students that will come back in person, but it'll be a while before some of them come back. And then all of us have had the wonderful experience of having people join us who don't live near us. My kids could jump on and have their cousins that actually, we've got some grandkids that live out near Sean, and they could jump on virtually and all go together. And if we don't offer that to our families, we're missing a huge opportunity. And then, so I think here we are, the 1st of September, and it's going to be important that as we dial back the pressure of producing so much right now, maybe weekly, that if we're going to go to a system of offering some really good special major events this fall, that we start planning and make sure we do it now. Because some of them are not necessarily going to take more work, but they're going to take more time to produce. There's going to be some more videoing happening, and there's going to have to be some editing happening and that kind of thing. And then last but not least, I think doing safe, COVID-safe special events is key in checking off a number of ministry boxes. You can involve your youth in, I've got an idea I'm going to share in just a minute, where youth can combat that Zoom fatigue, have a reason to be meeting on Zoom because they're planning this wackadoodle event for the children's ministry. And you'll hear a few ideas. You could incorporate your women's ministries in some of this. You could incorporate the men's ministry. You can incorporate, there can be all kinds of cross-pollination, even in these virtual or hybrid or in-person but COVID-safe ideas. So one of the things that I've been thinking about is why special events to get us through the next 4 months and still give some quality ministry, but an appropriate amount done in appropriate ways. I think it's because it keeps up some of the normal. Many of us are feeling grief of we're not able to do our weekly, see our friends at church, and we haven't been able to go have coffee hour, and we haven't been able to do this and that. And so if all of a sudden our annual trunk or treat was taken away, we'd be so sad. Or if we didn't get to have the nativity pageant that we all look forward to every year. I mean, I know I look forward to the nativity pageant because there's always a shepherd that hits another shepherd with their cane. It's the best part of Christmas. Well, no, Jesus is the best part of Christmas, but so it keeps up some of that normalcy. And I think that as you in your own setting are looking at, well, what about this event? What about that event? I think every single event we could think of that's a tradition for us, you can find the safe distance COVID version of it. You just got to keep looking. Don't let the pandemic stop you. Look for the version of it that's got safe practices. As I said before, find ways to cross-pollinate ministries to ministry. Scott, you've probably experienced this, but students have said, we've got Zoom fatigue, and youth directors are having a harder and harder time getting their kids to show up for youth group on Zoom. Now, that's probably because we tried to do youth group too similar to in-person, and we needed to kind of pivot it. We're learning lessons. Sean's busy producing the program, so I'll steal his idea. It's the best idea. He said in his weekly youth group meetings by Zoom, they don't accomplish as much as they used to. It's shorter, but they always start with dinner when they're in person. So they have started the Zoom meetings with dinner, and they just all sit there and talk about what they're eating, and everybody's, making fun of other people's chicken nuggets and things like that. And then another reason to just keep going with special events is that special events help set up the virtual content we're now putting into the hands of parents of children and youth. I said all along, I want more discipling to happen at home, right? Stop depending on your children's leaders or your youth leaders to do that for you. But parents would say, I don't know the Bible. I don't feel comfortable with the Bible. Now we're putting it at home because we're providing it now, and parents are starting to get more comfortable with it. I mean, even the idea we talked about of Miss Pat having Bible story time. All the mom and dad have to do is, everybody get your jammies on, let's meet at the couch 7:30, and get your blankie, and here we are. So I'm gonna spitball you some quick ideas. And the idea with this is, you don't have to do it necessarily the way that I brought it up, but I'm hoping that kind of like 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon, you'll take the idea I gave you and it'll lead to 2 or 3 ideas down the road. And I just wanted to be a spark for you. So some of the things that maybe we normally have done before in September are things like a back to school rally or a fall kickoff, some kind of promotion day, some kind of Bible Sunday. We can still do those things even if your church isn't meeting in person or the children's ministry isn't meeting in person. How about, what if you did a drive-through fall kickoff? Now, for some reason, when I think of September, I think of apples, back to school and apples. So what if you gave the whole event an apple theme and you did this drive-by, but there were stations to go through around your church parking lot or around your church or however you want to set up. And families, you might do a timed entry or spread it out over the course of a couple of hours so it wasn't all jammed up, but a car with their kids would stop at one station and maybe the pastor's there to pray over the backpacks. And then they drive forward to another station, and there are make your own backpack tags, and they all color their own in the car and put it on their backpack. And they go to another station in this Apple theme. Maybe they make some construction paper Apple cards that are then sent to the local assisted living place. Maybe they go to another station and you serve apple juice and fried apple pies from McDonald's. Maybe you go to another place, another little station in this, and that's where you do your promotion day. You celebrate the first graders and you celebrate the this and the that. See what I'm saying? We can do it, and then it can be safe as well. Let's look at October. One of my favorite months. I saw on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, somebody post, are we even going to be able to have Halloween this year? Of course we are. It may not be thousands of kids trick-or-treating in our neighborhood. I'm lucky if I get 6 kids in my neighborhood. I love it. They get lots of candy. I went to the big candy bars last year, just, as a marketing ploy, but it didn't work. So we can, as churches, we can make Halloween happen. We can still have the pumpkin patch, just think through the ways that people congregate. In a pumpkin patch, it gets crowded around the payment table, and it gets crowded around the story time area. So spread out your payment tables. Have 4 corners. Have people walking around taking payments on PayPal. Do your story time in scheduled increments where families are safe distanced around the story area. Trunk or treat. I think we could reverse trunk or treat, and this could be a great tool. Let's say Miss Pat and Scott are at the same church, and Scott's the youth leader and Miss Pat's the children's leader, and she wants to do this reverse trunk or treat. Well, she asked Scott for help, and Scott's going, gosh, I can hardly get my kids to come on Zoom, but this would get them. And here's why. The reverse trunk or treat, families come in their car and they stay in their assigned parking space. And you spread the parking spaces around so that kids still stay in, they can get out of the car, and they're dressed up and masked. It's the youth that go around sort of car to car, still safe distance, still masked, but maybe 2 or 3 go around and pass out the candy. And the candy can be passed out in safe ways. Somebody yesterday suggested those big long grabbers, passed out candy that way. Maybe a few of the other youth do skateboarding tricks or can juggle or can unicycle, and they go around kind of area to area in the reverse trunk or treat. Maybe 2 or 3 of them work on telling the pumpkin patch parable, and they take the show, they get kind of 4 or 5 cars at a time, and people watch from where they are. It's totally doable. Scott gets his kids online because they're planning the craziness of it. Pat still gets to do her trunk or treat in a safe way, and everybody wins. So let's look at November. I don't know about you, but for me and for churches that I've served at, Thanksgiving baskets have always been a big part of what we do. Having food drives, getting the food we need for the baskets. And I think you could do just the most fun family event, have it be COVID safe. Have a Thanksgiving basket food scavenger picture hunt. We got to work on the title, but here's what it is. Families jump on Zoom at, say, 6:30 on a Friday night. And everybody jump on with your family, and Sean's ready with the scavenger hunt list. And families are given a car, the list, and 45 minutes or an hour, whatever you need, to go and rack up as many items are on the scavenger hunt list. You also have them take photos in crazy, ridiculous poses, because that's just fun. They come back after 45 minutes. The points are added up. And this is all virtual on Zoom. The points are added up. You know who wins. Who wins are the people that receive the food basket. Everybody uploads to Scott the pictures, and then you share the pictures, you declare a winner. Here's how a scavenger, I've done this a trillion times in youth ministry. Like, canned green beans or corn gets 5 points. A box of stuffing, now that's going to get 25 points. And you're just going to friends' houses or church members' houses. I always warn the pastor to have extra food because everybody wants to go to the pastor's house. If somebody comes back with like a pumpkin pie, a frozen pumpkin pie or cherry pie, that's worth 50 points. And if somebody scores a canned ham, that's 100 points right there. Another idea for November is this year in November, the first Sunday of Advent is going to be happening in November. That's kind of a traditional time where we decorate our church or we do a hanging of the greens service. And maybe we won't be able to do that this year. At least go to the church and do the hanging of the greens. It will depend on your setting, etc. But what if we did a reverse hanging of the greens or a different version of it? Instead of doing the service where you symbolically do it in the church, what if you still did this service virtually, but symbolically did the decorating in each home? Like at the right moment, a piece of garland is hung and everyone does that together. At the right moment, the lights are plugged in on everybody's tree and everybody gets to see it. And maybe every family brings a special ornament and gets to explain why this ornament means so much. You can kind of take it from here, but could you see how that could work? It could be different. It could be fun. It doesn't even have to be that hard, but you can make it happen. And then last but not least, December. If we need to plan virtual December, and I think we should be thinking about it, there are lots of ways we can do some of the typical stuff. Breakfast with Santa, that's so easy to do. What if some of the people in your church baked cookies or homemade cinnamon rolls and delivered them to the families with children on their doorstep, and all the kids got to jump on a Breakfast with Santa Zoom at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, and everybody ate their hot chocolate with cookies, and then you had a great nativity story time, and then Santa shows up. I mean, it can still happen and it can still be fun. And you could even increase the online participation because you could be inviting children from all around the country. We know that we can do Christmas caroling virtually so that it still gets into our nursing centers and assisted living facilities. Just coordinate and ask those facilities how they're making that happen. You all do the Christmas caroling, the story time. It could be shown in conjunction with cards that are created and sent. And so it's still so doable. And then last but not least, my last idea, the wonderful yearly nativity pageant. Maybe it's not going to happen in person because Christmas Eve is going to be tough. Even if we're meeting in person, we could be at limited percentage capacity, maybe not meeting at all. So here's my crazy idea. You make sense out of it. What if you assigned families different portions of the nativity story and their job was to act it out, their portion, and film it and send it to you? And the funny thing would be is if you had the costumes travel, so the same costumes are worn by Mary and Joseph, but the actors changed from house to house. It could be funny because if you're a smaller church and maybe you got less than 12 kids or less than 20 kids, you could do it all in one group, and you could have in one scene a 4'11" Joseph, and in the next scene Joseph 6'2", but they're all wearing the same costume. This is where you could have Christmas cookies delivered to every family in your church, and everybody gets in and has their hot chocolate and cookies and watches the big worldwide premiere of the nativity pageant. It could be so much fun. And, something even the youth ministry could pour themselves into. So, there we go. It's a few ideas of what we could do. And, you can kind of take it from there. You don't have to do it exactly like I suggested, but it could be done in ways that, you find are comfortable for you. What do you think? So Scott and Sean and Miss Pat, how let's bring you in and let's kind of ask some questions. Let you sort of address. And in fact, and first, let's start with Miss Pat. And I don't know if people call you Miss Pat, but I worked at a church for a long time with a wonderful Christian ed director, and everyone called her Miss Pat. So, Miss Pat, what are your thoughts? Kind of debrief what I mentioned and tell me what you're thinking.
I think they're wonderful ideas, and what I get from that is that during this time you're using imagination. You are looking at, you're not grieving over what we can't do. Instead, you're thinking, oh, this is what we can do. Mm-hmm. And when you do that and you reimagine and you think outside the box, there's an excitement there. And if you have the excitement and you can pass it on to those that you're ministering to. And that's one of the great things about looking at this as an opportunity instead of, oh no, we can't do this.
Right.
Know. So, yeah.
That's so true. What are you thinking, Scott?
Yeah, I'm with Pat. I mean, like I just graduated seminary last year, and so my first thought was there's no seminary class on pandemics. No. So like there was no training for this, so it was very frustrating at first. But yes, thinking outside the box. Something we talked about earlier this summer, like going to students' houses and sitting on their front porch with a camping chair and bringing them lunch and just sitting and talking to them. I'm scheduled that with families now. I'm going to be doing that with families. I'm going to bring a few pizzas over, and we're just going to sit out in the yard and talk. Just finding ways to connect with people that's different. And also at the same time, you mentioned this, we have a wonderful opportunity here to be emphasizing and training our parents to be the faith leaders in their homes. Being Lutheran, we have the season of Pentecost. So we did Pentecost packets, and we sent something home weekly that all parents had to do was read it with their kids and then do an activity, a little craft. And we did the names of God, something real easy, A to Z. But it began like cultivating that attitude of parents, like, you need to be leading in your homes. We're going to equip you to do it. We're going to give you the tools. And so we delivered the packets. That was fun to get to go to homes. We're going to do it for Advent as well. Do the same thing, but something you mentioned, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add ornaments, chrismons to trees. We're going to send those where they can decorate them and have them all do it together, and let's do it as a church family through Zoom sessions. So yeah, just thinking outside the box, just saying, ministry as we've done it is not gone, but it's a lot of it that's just not applicable anymore. And what's it going to look like even when we come out of COVID is going to be different, hopefully for the better.
I think it's going to be for the better. We're stretching our creativity muscles, and we're using we're finding some new ways to do ministry. And be honest, before this whole thing started, we were all kind of finding ourselves in a state of staleness in a way. Sean, I'm going to ask you a question. There are a couple of our folks that have asked, how do we do homemade goodies in a safe way, in a safe COVID way? Or how do we pass out candy in a safe COVID way? The candy part's pretty easy because it's already pre-wrapped anyway, but how could we do that and still be COVID safe?
Yeah, I think it's, you want to be safe, and you want to communicate what you're doing with folks and give people the option to opt in or opt out, depending on their comfort level. But I think there are parameters you set up for people who want to provide candy or baked good. Sure. We were on a webinar yesterday and talked about doing the drive-through version, and even some people had like the stick clampy things where they were clamping the snack or the goodie or the candy and handing it to people in their cars so that you didn't have to get close to people. So yeah, I think you want to be safe and aware that that some people will be more inclined to participate and maybe offer alternatives if people aren't willing to jump in.
You know, I was just thinking how much food I've had Ubered in over the last 6 months. I feel a lot safer about having some homemade cinnamon rolls from the lovely ladies of the United Methodist Women. I'm giving my tradition, my faith tradition background away. I feel a lot safer about their homemade cinnamon rolls than I do that pizza dude that I don't know where his hands have been. It could be, he's just leaving it on my doorstep. I don't know what happened before it got there. So, but it's a concern. I don't worry about it too much. I think the candy part's pretty easy. And like you said, those little grabber sticks. We have someone that asked here, our church is exploring doing a Christmas play in a radio show way. Forget the visual and lean into the listening portion with sound effects and singing. Oh, what do you think about that? I mean, good, bad, what do you think?
I like it. I think that would be a lot of fun, especially for churches who may not have the capacity to have the video, but they're they're on YouTube or something. You just have the sound. But think how awesome it would be to have sheep baaing and cows mooing and the grumpy stuff and the harps and that would just be fun. I could just go on forever thinking about what you could do with that. That's a great idea. Whoever thought about that.
Yes.
Do it.
What do you think, Scott?
Oh, my immediate reaction was like a prairie home companion does the nativity story, and I'm like, that's awesome. I was sold right there as soon as that thought hit. We've already got ours planned, how we're doing ours recording, but I'm like, I just think that's a credible idea. Whoever had that, and we should be sharing that with many people we can for them to be thinking about it.
You know what's running through my head is I am very much not an auditory processor or learner. And so strictly auditory is hard for me if there's not kinesthetic along with it. So if they're doing sound effects and singing, the kids could be making the sheep noises and
Yes.
the dads the dads make the donkey noises and the moms make the cow noises and you have different, you could even tell each family, go grab these items. You got 3 minutes to go grab these items. We're going to use them in the telling of the story. That would be so fun and so engaging.
Mm-hmm.
What a great idea.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan, for putting that in there. We're going to steal that idea, publish it, keep the money, because everybody knows you publish in Christian publishing for the big money. Okay.
Yeah, well, actually, Dan is dropping another question in, which I think is great. With parents, do you think it is the right time to load another responsibility on them when they have to work, take care of their kids, other COVID-related stresses?
I really don't, because I'm sorry, I should be letting you answer this. That's why I said I think it's okay to dial down the offerings because they are stressed. And so maybe weekly programming isn't quite as necessary. Providing one really great event a month would be something that's a relief to them, still give them a sense of normalcy in their discipleship. And I said I shouldn't answer, and I went ahead and did it. What do you think, Sean?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's the heart of this webinar is that we don't, and we actually got a question via email from someone who registered just asking if ongoing events or one-time events are more ideal for building community, which I think is related to Dan's question. And that this is just a season where you're probably doing worship weekly. But other than that, I don't think it's manageable for church staffs and volunteers. I don't think it's manageable for families to try to be, and maybe it is for you, but I think leaning into these major events, maybe something monthly, so that you have the time and the energy, because it's all going to take more work. It's different work than ever before. So I would agree with you that we don't want to add, just any time in life, but especially now, we don't want to add busyness, calendar items, stressors to parents and families with everything else they have going on. But it is nice to have the monthly events or the special events that are touch points that people can look forward to and keep them connected to the church.
What do you think, Miss Pat?
I agree. I live in a multi-generational household, so I have 2 grandchildren, a daughter, and my husband are here. So we've got school going on, and it's crazy. It's just literally crazy trying to do stuff, and you just add that extra little thing on that it's too much. So yes, spread it out. Do a good job. Make it a thing that means something. But then have the time to rest and relax and refresh and look forward to the next thing that's coming.
Scott, I got a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's say that you had the superhero power. You had super pandemic youth pastor power. And I may have consumed too much caffeine today, I'm just saying. And you had 2 minutes to impart one thought about doing quality relational ministry from now through the end of this year.
Ooh.
Exercise your superpower. What would you tell folks?
Probably echoing things. Less is more right now. Because you don't want to overwhelm. You want to find ways, even more so now, to get very precise in your conversations because they're so limited. So what content are you talking about with your students right now? What is it that you're actually presenting to them that's going to be helpful to them in this season? You know, we have seasons where we want to go a whole year and teach them how to read the Bible, you know, and how to that. This right now with Zoom, with how schools are going, is not the time to want to really dig in deep with them on some of these issues. It's more how do you deal with stress? How do you deal with fatigue, burnout? How do you deal with, feeling separated from your friends and family, because they really are. How do you teach them to lean into God in these moments right now when they feel so lonely? Remind them that God is present when they feel him, when they don't feel him. Why? Not because, I said it, because God's word says it. So
yeah, that's a great word. Let me then just kind of start to land this jet and go over a couple of things for you as we wrap up. I want to first of all thank Miss Pat, thank Scott, thank Sean for their wisdom. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you've got thoughts, questions. Sean will, if he hasn't already, put my email address in the chat room. It's stephanie.caro@ministryarchitects.com. Don't forget about the signing up for a free 30-minute coaching call consultation from today's event. If you want to flesh out an idea from today, go to the address that Sean has in the chat room. We mentioned at the top of the time together about Mark DeVries's event in a box co-laboratory. So it's 5 one-hour sessions with Mark DeVries and Trey Wentz. The cost is $199 per church. Ministry Architects will help you design it, launch it, get it organized, walk you through. It's kind of like a little short-term cohort. And the co-laboratory with Mark and Trey is open to the first 6 people who sign up. You can sign up or get information about it in the chat box where we're announcing it here first. If there's more than 6 people interested in that kind of concept, of course, it's basically just us doing, kind of being your youth or children's director for a short bit, trying to get this done for you, walk you through the fall. And then as we wrap up, remember there is a Facebook Live September 17th with, the sweetest lady you'll ever met, who's just sweet children's ministry, Elaine Pendergrass. One of my favorite ministry people in the world, Anthony Prince. And, I may be there. as well. The great Rob Dyer will be hosting us at that time, so it'll be a lot of fun. Sean, anything else for the good of the cause before we say goodbye? No, Sean.
No, I mean, I think that's it. Thanks for good questions, and definitely reach out. I know we didn't get to all of them, but we know you have other things going on in ministry and life. So we don't want to be here all day, but reach out to us if you have questions you didn't get answered or other ideas that are bubbling up. We're here to continue the conversation.
The Facebook Live on September 17th, you can go to Facebook to get it, to the Ministry Architects page for either watching it live or seeing the recording later. And then this webinar will be uploaded and posted on the Ministry Architects website. So you'll be able to see it that way. All right? Everyone, thank you so much for being here. It was good to just spend time with you, and I'm sorry I didn't get to see all your faces, but I'm so grateful to look through the chat room and see who was on. I just hope that it sparks something else, which sparks something else. Feel free to reach out by email if you want to talk a little bit more, if you, whatever you need. We're here for you. Thank you, Miss Pat. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, God. Take care. Blessings.